Hello, good evening. My name is Matthew Medvey, and I have been selected to present assignment 8.3, which is the Air Transportation System Group project. I've been assigned to Group 4, and my other teammates for this project are Al Rosado and Chance Owen. All right, so the agenda for today, we'll be discussing airline complexities of air transportation systems across international boundaries, the vulnerability of cyber security threats on commercial aviation, and the need for global harmonization of air transportation systems. Myself, Matthew Medvey, populated the airline complexities of air transportation systems across international borders. Chance Owen populated the vulnerability of cyber security threats on commercial aviation portion. And Al Rosado populated the need for global harmonization of air transportation systems portion. All right. Airline complexities of air transportation systems across international boundaries. All right. Airlines are consistently analyzing profitability and performance, frequently against one another. Often, airline management decides to focus on a specific factor of their air transportation system to ensure consistent performance. Boston Consulting Group provides examples of this, such as Delta Airlines' commitment as the on-time machine, Alaska Airlines' tagline of safe, on-time, and with your bag the lowest cost, and Ryanair, which is a low-cost carrier, publicly acknowledging that their flights are uncomfortable and consistently late. However, their low airfare offerings make up the difference to their consumer base. Airlines build their reputation on a specific factor or few factors deemed most able to deliver beneficial performance that aligns with targeted market segment and consumer base to enhance overall profitability potential. However, targeted market segment and targeted air transportation factors can be heavily affected by complexities that arise for airlines operating across international boundaries. Makes it more complicated. So, complexity factors that arise for airlines operating across international boundaries that have potential to influence airline performance and profitability include international politics, countries supporting aviation infrastructure, fuel prices, and the skilled labor force pool that's required to support safe, reliable aviation operations and transportation. The status of each one of these factors in each individual country that an international airline operates in can have a unique level of influence on airline operations that makes it even more challenging for an airline to plan for and respond to. Over the course of the next few slides, we'll delve deeper into how these complexity factors can affect an airline's performance and profitability. All right. So, international politics, such as foreign policy, security, and technology, etc., they can be challenging complexity factors for an airline to plan and respond to because of high degrees of volatility and unique circumstances. An example of international politics, more specifically like foreign policy and security, that can impact airlines operating across international borders can be observed through the Brexit movement. Reed summarizes that Great Britain's eventual withdrawal from the European Union carries the potential for massive grounding of flights as the EU limits non-EU ownership of airlines of its members to 49%. Once Great Britain leaves the EU, it'll exceed this percentage, which will be interesting. Furthermore, Reed states that Brexit holds the potential to have disastrous consequences, impacting routes, aviation safety, and security overall by conforming to different standards. Situations like Brexit introduce increased complexity to airlines operating across international borders that can negatively impact airline operations and overall profitability. All right. So Fuel prices and the overall skilled labor force continually serve as complexity factors that must be considered for airlines operating across international boundaries. Fuel is airlines' greatest external cost, so fuel prices continuously change, which is challenging enough for an airline. But to add to the complexities of an airline operating across international boundaries, fuel prices vary even more in between countries. So for example, JetX displays that the average cost of avgas per gallon in US dollars is $4 in Santiago, Chile, $7 in Berlin, Germany, and $9 in London, England. These statistics serve as a good example of displaying that the average cost per gallon of avgas can be over 100% higher in one country than another, which can prove challenging for an airline operating across international boundaries in terms of balancing competitiveness and profitability. Airline access to an appropriate skilled labor force across international boundaries proves challenging as well. International air travel has been continuously increasing over time, and it's only projecting to increase in the future. So, various countries' access to an appropriate skilled labor force can be inconsistent as more developed and less developed countries struggle to keep up with demand of an aging labor force. So that's challenging. Freener discusses that aviation companies and airlines will need to invest in increasing efficiencies and productivity initiatives, such as like exploring new processes, technology, training programs, and products in order to keep up with the demand and combat the slim resources that projecting to come to fruition. All right, now we'll discuss the vulnerability section, cybersecurity threats on commercial aviation. Right. So as you can see on this slide, there are several examples of potential threats to airport systems, ranging from self-checking kiosks, bag drop systems, to Wi-Fi networks. And according to research in Europe, the European Aviation Safety Agency estimates an average of 1,000 attacks a month on aviation systems, which is alarming. Larger attacks can be typically categorized into the following: communication networks, malicious software, tampering with airport devices, misuse of system authorization, and phishing attacks. Attacks can be categorized as both active, where the intruder attacks or gains access to networks, or data and passive, where data is potentially intercepted. A study was compiled by Coronet, which is a cloud-based security firm, of the 10 most vulnerable airports to Wi-Fi hacking in the United States. The data in this chart was compiled over 45 of the busiest airports in the U.S. over 5 months, a 5-month time frame. Network vulnerability and Wi-Fi risks were analyzed. As you can see at the bottom, San Diego came at the highest risk of 10. The risk of connecting to a malicious network are listed at a medium risk of 30% and a high risk of 11%. According to Coronet, no other airport compares. So not listed on the above chart are the two of the lowest reported risk airports, which are Chicago's Midway and Raleigh-Durham International Airport. So in 2016, our worst fear became a reality. Researcher Ruben Santamarta from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security successfully accessed SATCOM and Wi-Fi in an in-flight airplane. Also, in-flight entertainment was hacked on multiple occasions in a 3-year period, which is just unacceptable. This past week, an ADS-B signal degradation issue was reported, causing a widespread outage across the country, which you can see in the outage map. The FAA reported inaccurate position data from GPS data in conjunction with ADS-B. Receiver autonomous integrity monitoring steps in at that point and cross-checks position data to determine accuracy. It causes still to be determined. Without proper GPS signal and the ADS-B system, it won't function function properly, forcing pilots and air traffic controllers to rely on older radio signal systems to determine aircraft location. The result has been a multitude of canceled flights. Since ADS-B signals are unencrypted and unauthenticated, makes the system more susceptible and vulnerable to hacking. With no encryption and open broadcast data, ADS-B communications are at risk. We'll cover mitigation resilience measures in the next slide. So lastly, cybersecurity implementation and integration in airports and airlines is the responsibility of management. These proactive measures help to improve cyber resilience. Cryptographic protection can be a great mitigation tool for ADS-B. Air traffic control must continue to stay current on and ensure that primary and secondary radar systems are working properly as backup to ADS-B technology. The common theme and strategy for success in both cyber resilience and risk mitigation is in order to quickly recover from cyber threats or attacks, one must regularly simulate and practice potential threats and response capabilities and protocols in airport operations, which are key to successfully combating and overcoming potential threats. All right. Next, we'll go over the need for global harmonization of air transportation systems. All right. Global harmonization and interoperability between air traffic management systems is a worldwide and collaborative process that was recommended by the United Nations Technical Agency for Aviation, the International Civil Aviation Organization, in the year 2003. The suggested recommendations by ICAO will eventually modernize and enhance the management of aircraft in the air and on the ground by reducing aircraft contingency fuel requirements, reducing taxi time to allow operators to manage aircraft usage from gate to runway, which minimizes queuing, optimizing flight planning, ensuring direct distance between airports, increasing cruise climb efficiency by removing fixed altitudes, ensuring smooth, steady climbs rather than in steps, which is, overall improves efficiency. Optimize continuous descent to avoid holding patterns during the descent from cruise to landing. Reducing diversion holds, which, avoiding holding patterns when a diversion to another airport is required. Ultimately, all these would reduce CO2 emissions in the aviation industry. Although modernizing ATM systems would allow global airspace to become more efficient, predictable, and safer, global harmonization of ATM systems still has adoption issues on a worldwide scale. Global harmonization of ATM systems requires large sums of funding to research and develop new technology. While the EU and the US have made massive progress in their own regions, ATM system infrastructures over the past decade, other nations have slowly approached the modernization with minimalist approach in implementing changes, or they haven't even started at all. To best visualize this current status of global harmonization of ATM systems, areas of responsibility have been broken down by using Everett Rogers' diffusion of innovation model to classify air traffic management system coverage into 5 separate categories. Those being innovators, which are the first to adopt an innovation and are willing to take risks, have great financial lucidity, have close contact to scientific sources and interaction with other innovators. The second being early adopters, which adopt an innovation early, have more financial lucidity, and realize judicious choice of adoption. And it'll help them maintain central communication position. The third being early majority. Early majority adopt an innovation after a varying degree of time. This time of adoption is significantly longer than the innovators and early adopters and tend to be slower in the adoption process. The fourth being late majority. which adopt an innovation with a high degree of skepticism and after the majority of society has adopted the innovation. Late majority are typically skeptical about an innovation and have very little financial lucidity. And laggards are last to adopt innovation and have aversion to change. All right. So, as both an innovator and early adopters, the EU has led the joint public and private partnership between 41 European Union member states that have collaborated together through the European Union Aviation Safety Agency to create the Single European Sky ATM research program. The CSAR is centralized under Eurocontrol and has gradually been developed in numerous phases. The time phases were the definition phase, the development phase, and it's currently in the deployment phase at an overall cost of 2.1 billion euros, which is $2.3 billion, roughly. The EU Single European Sky System is scheduled to be fully operational by the year 2020, which is next year. All right. All right. As both an innovator and early adopters, the North American region is being led by the Federal Aviation Administration. Since 2007, the FAA has developed the Next Generation Air Transportation System, or NextGen. The NextGen system is a conglomerate of many technologies and procedures that have been developed and implemented through safety testing. The NextGen system is not phased, but rather simultaneous upgrade with the United States airport mapping, communication, navigation, and weather systems. The estimated total cost of the upgrade is $4.7 billion as of 2018, and it's scheduled to be fully operational by the year 2025. All right. As late majority adopters under Everett Rogers' diffusion of innovation model, Southeast Asian and Pacific nations comprising of 11 countries have been developing the region's future air traffic management system, Seamless Asian Sky, since 2011. Collectively, under the Asian Open Skies policy, the nations have been creating segments of the new system by creating the communication, navigation, and surveillance air traffic management system. The CNS ATM system has been completed since 2018. Overall cost has yet to be made public, but it's fully operational by 2035. All right. So short-term development plan was completed in 2018. Medium-term development plan is 2019 to 2023. Long-term development plan occurs between 2024 and 2028. As far as Seamless Asian Sky, short-term regional implementation was by 2018, medium terms 2023, and long-term is 2035, or projected, I should say. All right. In Northeast Asia, Russian Federal Civil Aviation Administration, also known as Russia's Federal Air Transport Agency, is a laggard, as it has not yet started developing a new ATM system. Considering Russia is the world's largest nation that borders European, Asian countries, as well as the Pacific and the Arctic regions, it has only recently received funding of 46 billion rubles, which is about $717 million, to research, develop, and implement its own ATM system with a projected in-place date by the year 2030. Considering the nation's poor aviation safety record and political tensions, this project will most likely require longer than 10 years to implement, which is concerning. So, using Everett Rogers' diversion of innovation model, the global harmonization progress on regional specific ATM system development and implementation is clear to see. The European Union and North American agencies are both innovators, early adopters, and early majority with their respective ATM systems. The Single European Sky research and next generation air transportation system are leading the global harmonization of ATM systems. The collaborative multi-Southeast Asian agencies are in the late majority, but they're making strides to develop the seamless ASEAN Sky ATM system. The Northeast Asian region, controlled by Russia, is a laggard with no forward progress other than finally receiving funding. Although not captured in the data, South American and African Union aviation agencies are also laggards, has progressed in the development into their ATM system and still in progress. Global harmonization and interoperability between air traffic management systems is a worldwide and collaborative process that one day will work to increase aircraft capacity in congested airspace, increase schedule flexibility, and better flight path efficiency, but environmental, financial, and technical factors will still negatively affect worldwide air traffic management systems unification. So, the complexities of modern airlines and the air transportation management system cross many international boundaries that are consistently being analyzed for profitability and performance. To ensure consistent performance, complex factors that arise for airlines operating across international boundaries that have potential to influence airline performance and profitability include international politics, countries supporting aviation infrastructure, fuel prices, and to reduce strain on the skilled labor force pool that is required to support safe, reliable aviation operations transportation. International politics can be a challenging complexity factor for an airline to plan or respond to because of high degrees of volatility and unique circumstances. An example of international politics, specifically foreign policy and security that can impact airlines operating across international boundaries, can be observed through the Brexit movement. Technology has been assisting in revolutionizing everything from in-flight entertainment to navigation systems. Vulnerability can increase as airlines become increasingly dependent on these systems. With the advent of new technology, new cybersecurity threats are ever present, and global harmonization of global infrastructure still has complex security issues. Additionally, different countries' level of investment in technology and supporting aviation infrastructure can prove challenging, as an international airline may have differing levels of support and resources, which can impact safety, flight schedules, and overall profitability. As far as global harmonization of ATM systems, it'll change. Fuel prices and the overall skilled labor force continually serve as a complexity factor that must be considered from airlines operating across international boundaries. Fuel are airlines' greatest external cost. Fuel prices continuously change, which is challenging enough. Security in the sky. Safety and security are the greatest challenge that the industry is facing. This is because global terrorism continues to be predominant, and aviation sectors can be targeted easily, unfortunately. Airline governments and airports need to find out new and innovative ways so they can enhance security without compromising their service and overall comfort of their passengers. The aviation industry needs to employ some sagacious person who could provide them with the best security solutions without hampering the comfort of passengers. As far as technology, advances in technology is another big challenge in the aviation industry. Like any other sector, the aviation industry is being impacted by the move to digitalization. With the advent of newfangled technologies like blockchains to big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, the aviation industry is trying to accustom itself with these technologies. Big data is a major area in which every airline is working so that they can improve their product offerings and services and can wipe out their contenders by using this data effectively. Big data will help them to get a deeper insight of their customers' behavior and in which area they need to improve. In order to stay competitive, airlines are embracing big data and are improving their services and offerings. Airlines also need to implement chatbots, which will understand the needs of customers through artificial intelligence and point the customers to the right director. This will allow the airlines to cut down the cost of their call center, and they can assist the customers more efficiently. However, as the airline industry and infrastructure that serves it becomes increasingly dependent on technology, it's also going to be more vulnerable. Insufficient investment in technology infrastructure over the past decade has resulted in numerous computer outages that can cripple an airline's operations for days on end, and obvious financial impacts. With the growing threat of cybercrime, the airline industry will have to work much harder to stay ahead of the curve. All right. So please observe the references we utilize to conduct this project on this slide. And this is the references continued. Thank you for listening to our presentation and group project. We hope you found this informative and look forward to your feedback. Thank you and have a great night.